What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode for review for ReZero Season 3. This is episode 14, and with me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
Yeah. A lot of the episode, of course, mostly focused on. Well, I mean, it's mostly a Teresia focused episode. We do get.
Yeah,
to, you know,
I brought this up in the last episode review that I was kind of hoping they would go a little bit more into the backstory of Wilhelm and Teresia, considering we saw a little bit of it in Season 1, but we didn't really get a lot about it except just stuff that Wilhelm talks about. But in this episode, at least, we actually get to see like a lot more of what happened in the past.
Yeah, but like I mentioned before, it's like this mostly focused on Teresia's backstory of about how she became the sword saint, what happened to her family, and why she was reluctant on taking up the sword in the first place. And of course, why
I will say, like, I'm still not entirely clear on how the whole gift of the sword saint exactly works, because it seems like she just felt that she had it one day, and then she just had it after that.
And then all of a sudden it just transfers over to Reinhardt. I don't know if Heinkel ever got it, but it seems like
I don't think so. He doesn't act like he ever got it. I mean, it seems like he almost sort of resents the fact that I guess Reinhardt has it.
Yeah, so like it just transferred from Teresia to Reinhardt. It just seems like out of nowhere in a way. But yeah, the episode begins with with the fight continuing with Wilhelm going against Teresia. Basically just pleading with this version of Teresia to remember what happened. I guess what happened to their last meeting before she went off and died. But before they could get any further, Heinkel just suddenly appears out of nowhere, which unfortunately distracts Wilhelm to the point where Teresia ends up stabbing him in the leg, and then Teresia turns her attention to Heinkel, which Heinkel, of course, understandably is in shock to see his mother again after all these years, and then of course Wilhelm just desperately just cries out, to Teresia to just come over and to fight him, but of course Reinhardt then arrives, and Wilhelm just pleads with Reinhardt not to kill her because he feels like he needs to be the one responsible to take care of this. But of course Reinhardt just ignores the pleas and decides to just immediately just one shot finish her off with just one slash of his sword.
Yeah. Well, and then, the other reason, too, that Heinkel really doesn't like Reinhardt, and also that Wilhelm doesn't really have a good relationship with him, is because they believe that Reinhardt killed Teresia. But, as we see, that's not exactly what happened. So, I don't know. I'm a little bit confused as to, like, what... I mean, because Reinhardt doesn't deny it. He just says, like, because they ask him Wilhelm asked him if he has any regrets about it, and he says he doesn't.
Yeah.
So
after Reinhardt delivers the fatal blow to her, Teresia, of course, then recalls on her life when she was first given like the power of the divine protection of the Sword Saint. At an early age, which of course, she feels bad for her, having that responsibility, because she has like three brothers, and one of them in particular, she feels like she stole that honor from her brother, and then soon afterwards she was forced to take part in the Civil War, in which she pretty much refused to take up the sword throughout that entire battle by allowing her brothers to fight in her stead, which unfortunately, ends up getting all of them killed. And then, which she ends up feeling guilty over what happened. So she eventually just takes up the sword soon afterwards. And that's not only until a young Wilhelm decides to, become her sword soon afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, like he pretty much like vows to protect her, and then after that we get sort of I guess somewhat of a run through of their lives together. We see like Heinkel as a child, and then we just kind of cut to like years later, where I think I think they said that they're both like, I guess, in their 50s at this point.
Yeah.
And she's talking about, I guess, taking part in the I guess the extermination of the white whale. And of course, Wilhelm, I guess, is like against this. But she decides that she's going to go anyway. Wilhelm tries to talk her out of it, but I guess she's determined to go.
Yeah. So she and the rest of her unit end up confronting the white whale, but of course all of them end up getting killed by the white whale. But we find out what really happened to her. It turns out it was not the white whale that ended up killing her, but it turns out it was Pandora, the one who was the one responsible.
Yeah. And it's been a while since we've seen Pandora, but I'm not really surprised that she was behind that. But yeah, I guess we're to assume that, Pandora was responsible for that, or at least responsible for how she became how she is now. Although at the same time, that I feel like that doesn't really explain like why. I was kind of like wondering like why her appearance is that of, I guess, how she looked when she was like 14, I think. 14, 15.
Back in her early teens.
Not like how she looked, I guess, when she died when she was like in her 50s. So I was kind of wondering about that, but they don't really bring it up. So, But yeah, of course, after that, we cut back to the present where I guess she somehow regains her former self. And we hear we see in the flashback that Wilhelm never really voices that, that he loves her, and he's never told her that.
Yeah.
Even though, I just thought it was kind of silly at the same time, too, because it's like, okay, well, he's married to you and he had children with you. I think that much is pretty obvious, and that's pretty much what ends. He tries to say it because he says he's never been good with like words, and she tells him like he doesn't have to because he's been proving that like the whole time, which is what I was thinking. I'm like, I guess he's not really necessary considering that. He did all that with you. I mean, I would assume that he probably does, right? But
yeah,
I don't. Yeah.
Well, they both end up saying at the same time that they both love each other before before Teresia ends up passing away for good this time. But then at the post credit scene, Heinkel just berates Reinhard over killing her, just pretty much reinforcing his hatred over his son, being pretty much being responsible for killing Teresia, despite Reinhard's reasonings as to why he had to do this in the first place. And then Wilhelm, we see her collecting Teresia's ashes, and then pretty much asking Reinhard whether or not he feels regret over killing Teresia, and Reinhard said feels no regret over what he just did. Then pretty much this is just rather than just healing any wounds, it just made things even worse between all three of them.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it seems like things are still I guess strained between all of them.
Yeah. It just seems despite, we remember earlier on in the first core of season 1, this season, is that that Subaru tried to convince Reinhard to mend fences with not right. What is it? Asking Wilhelm to mend fences with Reinhard, but of course, what happened in this episode, this is not going to make things even easier. I mean,
yeah,
Subaru could keep trying, but I think it's with what just happened, it's not going to be as easy as before.
Yeah, probably not. But yeah, it was a pretty good episode. I like that we at least learned a lot more about Teresia, because that was a big question we had about the majority of season 1, and season 1 in particular, after we learned about what happened, but then we don't really get to know what happened with her for a while. So I like that we at least get to find out at least some of what happened with Teresia. Of course, there's still a lot of questions I have about that, and I feel like they'll probably most likely be addressed later. If not, they were probably addressed in maybe the EX novels. But I like that they at least answered some of those questions here.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of the EX novels, it focuses more on Wilhelm's past, much more in detail, showing that back when he was still a child, he was fighting in the war. before he met Teresia and ended up marrying her. So like I'm still waiting whether or not they are gonna make a proper adaptation of the EX novels for both the Wilhelm and then Crush's story as well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it, at least after season 3, it would make sense if they did an adaptation of those novels, considering those characters did play a prominent role in this season. If they were, I mean, I feel like if they were to adapt those novels, like now would probably be a good time.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they ever will, unfortunately. But yeah, like I said, I thought it was a good episode. It wasn't really like as action heavy as the previous one. It was more just expanding on what we saw somewhat in season 1 with Wilhelm and Teresia's backstory.
Mhm.
But we kind of get a proper, I guess, somewhat of a conclusion with, I guess you would call it, say, like Wilhelm's sort of character arc of him trying to find Teresia and giving her, actually like properly sort of like laying her to rest.
Yeah.
So
But
that like that kind of gets sort of concluded in this episode. But
yeah, but
uh,
at the end, like it doesn't mend fences with
yeah,
pretty much like
yeah,
with
like
Wilhelm Heikel and
he still
Reinhardt.
doesn't have a good relationship with his grandson and
Yeah.
his own son.
Hmm. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I still like this episode, even though it ended up in a bittersweet manner in the end. But yeah, it's so yeah, we still have at least 2 more episodes left for the season. It's to be fair, it's still a very short season in comparison to the other 2 seasons. But yeah, it seems
Yeah,
like we're gonna get the conclusion with this conflict soon afterwards.
well, yeah, and I think I did hear recently that I don't know if it's confirmed or just a rumor, but I heard that there are plans to do like another season where they adapt Arc 6.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know if it's actually been confirmed yet. But yeah, I'm sure they probably will. If they're not planning on doing it anytime soon, they'll definitely do it eventually. Um, but yeah, I am a little bit disappointed that it is a shorter season. But I guess it's probably just because the Arc 5 is a shorter arc, and Arc 6 probably wouldn't. I guess would not fit into, if they were going to do like a full season, it probably the whole of Arc 6 probably wouldn't fit into that. I guess maybe that's why they're doing it that way. But yeah, I don't have anything else to say though. I don't know if you have anything else to say about the episode.
Yeah, it was a good episode. Definitely like I guess it's hard for me to say if it was really a proper conclusion to Wilhelm's storyline. I mean,
Well,
there's
like
still
one major aspect of it, I
yeah,
guess.
in a way, yeah. I mean, I would still love to see like Wilhelm's full backstory if they ever get the chance to adapt the EX novels someday. But in terms of where they're going with I guess you could say that, like this is gonna put in another chapter to the Australia family arc.
Yeah. Yeah, guys. That all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.